Now let's just imagine, to put this whole thing in context, to give it a frame of reference, let's just imagine that you could go back in your past and make a few changes. Well, I kind of did that in my mind. I thought to myself, if I could go back in my past and make some changes, what would I change? Coming from a perspective of somebody with autism, with Asperger syndrome. And so I thought to myself, how far back in the past can I go? Well, in reality, I can go back to 69. Not the year 1969, but to the age of 69, which is where I am right now. Yeah, I'm a few months away from turning 70. That's hard to believe, let alone say. But yeah, I'm almost there. So I can go all the way back to age 69. Now, if you're paying attention, you're probably thinking, Ken, you already are 69. That's not your past, it's your present. But let's stop and think about this. The present is tomorrow's past. So right now, this very moment, I'm living in tomorrow's past. So I can change tomorrow's past by changing what I do right this very moment. But how does that help me in my younger years? Well, actually it doesn't. But it could help somebody else. So here I am, pushing 70. And now I am in your present, which is soon to be your past. And I'm hopefully going to help you make some changes that will be beneficial by going into your present past. So you can take advantage of the things that I've learned over the years. And here are some of the things that I wish I could change if I could go back. Number one is, I wish I just knew why. If I could go back in the past when I was little, like kindergarten or preschooler or first grade, somewhere in that area, that is when I needed to understand going forward, from that moment going forward, or those moments going forward, why. This is why you are the way that you are. Now I knew what. It became very obvious for any time. I was going to say the first time, but any time I got around other kids or other people. I seemed to do a lot better when I was around adults, but kids, it became kind of obvious that I just didn't fit in. I wasn't one of them. There was something different. I like to use the terms concentric and eccentric. So I was this little 4-year-old, 5-year-old eccentric. They were circles in circles in circles. They all matched perfectly, or so it seemed, and I was way out of line. Alignment, I should say. So I didn't understand why. I knew I had problems, but I didn't know what Asperger syndrome. Oh, come on. How many 4-year-olds know what Asperger syndrome is? How many 5-year-olds know what autism is? Well, I heard the terms as I became an adult, but it wasn't until I was in like my mid-60s, earlier mid-60s, that just out of curiosity, those are terms I heard, so I thought, I think I'll find out what this is. So I discovered that there's this thing called autism, and I discovered there's this thing called Asperger syndrome, and I discovered for the first time in my life that this is something. Okay, I match. There's this what's the word? Concentricity, is that a word? If it's not, we'll just make it up. But I realized I was concentric with autism, with Asperger syndrome. So I thought to myself, having studied all this, I need to go talk to a professional, somebody who really knows what they're talking about, a therapist, and have a proper diagnosis. So there I was, age 65, and finally discovered, about 60-some years too late, that, or later than it should have been, I should say that, I have Asperger syndrome. I was autistic, but I wish I had known that when I was little. Wish I'd known that when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was college age, early years in my adulthood. Number two is I wish I'd known that help actually was available. Now, keep in mind that Asperger syndrome was understood dating back to the 30s, I believe. So the knowledge was available, but it wasn't something that was widely known. It still isn't, come to think of it, like it should be, but it was there. But still, there was no one that was a parent in my life who was willing or able or even knowledgeable to help me out and give me that advice. So help was available, but that's not the way the world approaches things. How did they approach me as a person with Asperger syndrome, somebody who is not concentric but eccentric? Well, the way that people tend to deal with that is they say, this guy is off-center. He's not in alignment. So we need to align him, or her if you happen to be a female. And what they would do is they would try to bully or beat you in a conformity. because you're not in alignment. Now, I grew up in a Christian fundamentalist environment. And, religions tend to have this weird obsession, I should say, with hair. For example, the Hare Krishnas should be called the hairless Krishnas because they shave their hair. Some of the Orthodox Jews, I forget what they call these things, but they have these odd things that go along their sideburns, twirly little things. There are some groups like the Holiness. The women have very, very long hair, which they pile on top of their head, which kind of defeats the purpose in my thinking, but apparently they have good reason to do that. The Amish people, they wear their hair like, remember the Three Stooges, and they had that, Moe had that bowl haircut. He looked like he was Amish. And to fundamentalist Baptists, their ideal expression of spirituality for men was to wear your hair like John Dillinger. No, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I have a problem because I was Asperger. Asperger didn't know it. I had a problem with hair to begin with, and besides that, they look stupid. I mean, you have these guys, fundamentalist Christians, and they're wearing their hair ridiculously short. I mean, some of them, they would openly brag about the what they would call a white wall because their hair was so short around their ears. And some of them, you could actually see the skin on the side of their head because they cut it that short. That was a mark of spirituality. So as long as you had your hair, in the proper proportion to everyone else, which means you had it cut shorter, that meant that you were more spiritual than everyone else. I guess if you shaved your head, you were just a spiritual giant. I don't know. Never knew anyone who did that back in the 60s, 70s. But I just did not conform. And their way of dealing with me, the fundamentalist, was they would try to bully and intimidate and ridicule me into conformity. Happy to say it never did work. Now, how long was my hair? It really wasn't that long. I mean, it was about like it is now, but by their standards, this hair, which you can't see because of my headset, but if it touched the top of your ears, that was too long. I mean, literally, they taught this. And on the back, if it touched the top of your collar, it was too long. Does it say that in the Bible? I mean, is there a verse in there that says if your hair touches the top of your ear or the top of your collar, you're living outside the will of God? It doesn't matter what else you do, but as long as your hair is... No, it doesn't say that. But there is a verse about it's a shame for a man to have long hair. I didn't think I had long hair. Compared to Dillinger, yeah, but compared to guys like Benjamin Franklin, no, I was, I had really short hair. So who gets to make the decision? And why is it, I ask myself, growing up as a fundamentalist and having heard hundreds and hundreds of sermons where they interjected this point, because it always got great shouts of amen from the congregation, that men should keep their hair extremely short so they can be spiritual. Why is it I never heard one single sermon on the verse that follows that in 2 Corinthians about how long hair is a glory to women? So, the point is that if you're a woman and you have short hair, that's as bad as a man who has long hair. But for some reason, they just skipped over that one because, it wasn't popular. And I understood that, and I got that figured out at an early age. These people are legalists. They don't care about reality. The point is that what adults would do is they would try to bully and beat you into submission, to be a part of the group, to be concentric with everyone else. And I just wouldn't do it. I just absolutely positively refused to wear my hair like a geek. If you guys want to do that, go ahead. And when I was in college, Bible college, I don't know how many times I got written up. Yeah, it's kind of like they give you traffic tickets, but over and over and over again. They just literally pull you aside when you're walking down the hallway, whatever, and give you a ticket for having your hair a tidbit too short. And they love to do that. That's the way it was. So they try to beat you into conformity, and that's just one little example. It's much broader than that. Number 3 is, I wish I had known what depression was. So depression hit full force probably when I was around 16, 17, 18 years old. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was a teenager, and I had no idea what depression was. Just like I had no idea what Asperger syndrome was. I can't remember any point in time in my life when I ever heard a discussion about depression. I never heard anybody talk about it. I never heard it presented in school. Of course, I didn't pay attention in school, but if I had have, I don't think I would have heard anyone talk about it. I didn't even know depression existed, but I did know that I felt really, really, really bad, that I had this horrible view of virtually everything that was depression. And I didn't know that I was depressed, but I knew I had these feelings. I just didn't know what you call it. I didn't know it was a disorder. I thought it was just, I thought I had a genuine, realistic view of reality, and it wasn't very good. I had no idea why. I had no idea that this was an expression of autism because I didn't know what autism was. So I was basically living in absolute ignorance, and I'm stopping to think, how many millions of people over the centuries, over the millennia, have gone through the same thing, and the chances are there were a lot of them. So number 4 is people will not understand. I wish I had known that as a kid growing up. The people simply do not have empathy. As we said earlier, the best they can do is try to beat you into submission. And I can give you a few examples. Let's take, for example, teachers. Now, when I was in school, I had some problems with teachers. By the way, I had some really good teachers, and I had some teachers that were not so good. A few months ago, I told about the teacher that I had in math class, and I couldn't focus. I couldn't pay attention. That thing with attention deficit was very real for me, but I could force myself to pay attention by taking notes. And so I was sitting there in math class, and the math teacher was teaching something to do with math, and okay, I'm going to get this. I decided. So I took out a pen and paper, or pencil and paper, and I started taking notes, and the teacher saw what I was doing and asked, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm taking notes." She told me to put down my pencil and pay attention. So I put down my pencil, and I didn't pay attention because I couldn't. This was a teacher who just assumed that I was goofing off. She just presumed, But I wasn't. I tried to pay attention. So people don't understand. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're mean, even though sometimes it does, but they just didn't. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know, maybe junior high school, and I was probably the most unathletic kid I ever knew. That kid that gets chosen last when they choose teams in softball. I was that kid. I was either last or I was next to last. Usually I was last, and the only reason they chose me is because they had to. But I recall one day we were playing volleyball, and I just did not have the coordination skills to hit the ball back. Well, actually, I think I did, but I think I was kind of in this little bubble by myself, and I was so self-conscious, and that expressed itself everywhere, even in sports. I know I could have hit it back if I had worked at it, if I had practiced it, but I was so convinced that I was incapable that it just didn't, my brain and my hands didn't coordinate, and so I could never hit it back. And the teacher, the phys ed teacher, should not have been called a teacher because he didn't teach. Basically, he just kind of babysat. But what he did is he saw that I couldn't hit the ball back, and he said to the other team, "Now you know where your weak spot is." Well, that was a teaching moment. That teacher could have taught me how to hit the ball back, and I could have done it. I know I could have done it. Now, I had another teacher that was just the opposite. It was about the same time, maybe a few years earlier, and she was teaching, she was teaching math. She was teaching fractions and how to reduce fractions, and I just didn't get it because, reducing fractions, that sounds very, very difficult, and I knew that I was kind of stupid, and I could never get it, so I didn't try. So the teacher kept me after school, and in the space of about, 15 minutes, showed me how simple it was to reduce fractions. So this teacher did just the opposite of the phys ed teacher. She actually taught me. And I discovered, I thought this was so very difficult, and it turns out it is so very simple. I mean, it's so easy. Why did I not get this? And then, a couple days later, she told the class that it appeared that I was the best student when it came to reducing fractions. Who would have known to even keep track of things like that? But the point is, adults, other people, do not understand. I recall when I was in high school, sitting in a history class, and the teacher she was an exchange teacher from Great Britain, had a strong southern accent. She was a portly, short little thing, and she was known for her meanness. I was going to say obtuse, but let's just say mean. And sitting there in class doing what I normally did, which is not paying attention, no attention deficit to the max. And she just stopped the class and started screaming at me. And she said this. She said, "Wipe that smile off your face." Looking right at me, everyone in the class got really, really quiet, and everyone stared like they were terrified. The problem was, I wasn't smiling. That's just the way I looked. I guess I had this smiley expression on my face all the time. That's not teaching. This is somebody who did not understand. And there's always a flip side to that. I had another teacher, another history teacher later on, who was equally as mean. The difference is she wasn't short and fat. She was just kind of skinny, and she was an American. And she was the second meanest teacher I ever had, but she was a very good teacher. And what she would do is she'd get up front and teach, and then when she was done, before we'd have a test, she would give everyone a list of maybe 300 questions. And she would say, out of this list of questions, I'm going to choose questions to put on the test. So if you learn the answers to all of these questions, you'll probably get an A on the test. And then we come back, 2 or 3 days later, take the test, and I always got, I got straight A's on the test. Because she gave us the answers, but in the process of giving us the answers, we were forced to learn what she was supposed to be teaching us. That was a good teacher, because she actually did teach. She didn't just scream at us. She didn't say, well, now you know where the weak spot is. This was a good teacher. So we had bad teachers, we had good teachers. What we didn't have, or what I didn't have, was understanding. There was no empathy of why I was the way that I was. And speaking of teachers, seriously, they can't parent all these kids that come through their class. So if you are an elementary school teacher, back then we had 30 kids, maybe 31 in a class, and the next year you get a different 30. Next year you get a different 30. Do that over your career, over 10 years, that's 300 kids. You can't parent 300 kids, right? And you only have them for a few months out of the year. They're not good. Teachers are not good parents. Parents are good parents, or they could be potentially. But my parents didn't understand what Asperger syndrome was. They didn't understand what autism was. They didn't understand any of those things. Nobody did. Nobody that I knew did. So you just didn't get that help from people. So the thing that I wish that I could change is be around people, or at least understood that people would not understand what I was going through. I wish I had known that they didn't know. And we had experiences like that throughout my life. When I was in college, that's when it really, really, really got bad, because people simply did not understand what I was going through. And how can you blame them? I didn't understand it. If I had encountered somebody like me, I would not understand them either. Now here's the problem. Anytime somebody encounters someone with autism, with Asperger syndrome, and they do not understand it, they just make something up. That's just human nature. We have to assume that we understand what's going on all the time, and if we don't understand, we'll make up something, and we'll use that kind of as a fill in the gaps. We understand what your problem is, and they'd come up with all kinds of dumb things. Like, let's say you're lazy, they would say you're aloof, they would say that you lack character. They'd have all these different ways of diagnosing and coming up with a disorder, and they missed it every time. The problem was I was autistic. Nobody caught that. And again, I didn't even catch it myself. I mean, how could I? I didn't know what it was. Chances are they didn't know what it was. But the point is, again, that people do not understand. And I wish I had known that as a kid. I wish I had known that when I took off to college and realized these people, it's supposed to be a Christian college. And I just didn't fit in, because I thought, okay, this is Christian. This is different. I'm going to fit in. No, people are people. You take people, you put them under a steeple, and they're still people. They're steeple people, but they're still people. Number 5, this is going to sound kind of weird, but I wish I knew how to respond to girls, because I was horrible with girls. In fact, as I think back now, it's just downright embarrassing, some of the dumb things that I did or didn't do. The only training that I had with girls is what I observed from other guys. My dad, my brother, older brother. They had this thing about courtesy where they would hold the door for people, for women, whatever. And my brother would hold the door for his girlfriend, walk her up the door when he took her home at night, and I happened to be there in the car, whatever. So I learned, but by and large, mostly I didn't know what to do with these things, these girls. What do you do with them? They come up and try to be nice to you. Why are they doing that? I mean, no one else is. Why this person? Why this time? Just totally, absolutely, positively confusing. And if I did respond, usually I would respond in the wrong way and get myself into some serious trouble. At least with a girl. So I really didn't know. I wish I had known how to respond to girls. That's where men come into play. Helping young men learn this is how you treat girls, or this is how you stay away from them, one or the other, whatever works. Number 6, I wish someone had told me when I was young that you're okay. That's it. Just you're okay. You're not weird. You're okay. Now, this is something that would have helped me a lot in my college years because all the things I went through as a child, as a teenager, probably the few years, I think it was like 3 years that I wasted in college, Christian college, by the way, were by far, they were the worst because this is where people just flat out not only didn't understand you, but we're talking about fundamentalist Christians here. They did not understand, period, what I was going through, why I was so quirky, why I was so weird. So they would run their own diagnostics, which is what people do, but they would run it from their perspective, and their perspective was I was a jerk. Which, that's the way it would manifest itself, that maybe I was haughty, that I was aloof, that I was lazy, that, they had all these things that they would, and finally, they just didn't like me, and I understood I'm not concentric, I don't fit here. So finally, I gave it my best shot. Seriously, I gave it my best shot, got up and left. I said, I don't fit in this environment. But I wish someone had just said, look, you're okay. Let me help you out here. Nobody did. And that shouldn't be surprising because, I didn't help people out. I mean, 8 billion people, I can't help all of them. And that's just the way people are. So number 7 is I learned this during those years and then a little bit later into my early adult years is that you are responsible for you. I wish I'd known that all along. Wish I'd known that from day one. But I finally learned it early. You are responsible for you. No one else is going to take care of you. Don't expect other people, particularly church people, people under a steeple. People under a steeple are still people. They're just steeple people, but they're still people. So you're responsible for you. They're not going to take care of you. If anything, they're going to do just the opposite. They're going to try to hurt you. At the very best, they will be neutral. They will do absolutely positively nothing. And as I like to say, the problem with religious people is not that they're religious, it's that they're people. See those 2 rectangles on the screen? Let's keep talking if you want. Just click one of those 2 rectangles and the conversation will continue. If not, thanks for stopping by. And we'll see y'all next time.